What's up? How you living? How you living? How you living? In living color. Welcome back to My Keen Imagination. I am your hostess with the mostest, and I almost dropped my computer just now, Jasmine. We're back because I want to have a little chit chat and a little recap regarding the book Moth to a Flame by Ashley Antoinette. Now, if you caught up on my last video, you see I was about to get into some things with none other than Mr. Ezra Ethic Okafor, and don't think I forgot about that. In order for me to deliver this read as I want to, I have to introduce the books in which he was a parent in before we can get into the series. And yeah, I'm going to give my general impression. I'm going to talk about the characters in the book. I'm going to talk about a little bit of the plot, not too much because I do not want to spoil it. And I'm also going to talk about or use an opportunity to explore chapters 1 and 2 and doing kind of like a more in-depth recap. So go ahead, get you a snack, get you a cute, refreshing beverage, and join me back and get real comfortable because we're going to get into it. So let's get into the impressions from the book. Generally, I can say there is such a wow factor for me that I experienced in this book. I read it twice. So my first time reading it was kind of just to get the story, get from the beginning to the end. I finished this book relatively quickly. There is no other books within this, like, I guess you can call it a series. This is a standalone book, so it's one and done. However, you can explore and keep up with the characters in the Ethic series, right? Or that's where I am right now. But I had a general wow factor because one thing I appreciate about Ashley Antoinette's writing is how captivating she is. She's detail oriented. You will get character development. If your character is entered on the scene with a grand opening, please expect a grand closing. And if you did not get a grand closing, you better keep your eye to the prize because she is they are going to make another appearance, right? Ashley's writing provides cliffhangers that, appear in kind of like the inner dialogue that characters are having or narrating through their time on the screen, or they're kind of like just out loud. So they're foreshadowing events through suspicion and doubt, but they're also like how the characters are feeling in that moment. So you're like, should I root for you? Okay, things are looking up. It's up and it's stuck. I appreciate Miss Ashley because she keeps you on your toes. And in this one book, there was nothing that ever had me kind of like, okay, how long are we going to drag this out? The pacing was really good. The story followed one character, but you always was looking like, okay, what they doing over there? Should I be concerned? Or that's how I am. I'm very animated, as you can tell, in reading. So I like to read or experience things in a really visual way. And that's exactly what Ashley gave me. So I'm speaking to that. The time span between me reading it the first time and the second time was approximately 6 to 8 months. And even from reading it that first time, I revisited it the second time and I kind of was like, I remember this. Like, it wasn't feeling like I already read this, I'm gonna skim through it. It was kind of like, okay, I remember this. And I still had that same anxiety. I still had that same like foreshadowing effect that really kept me on my toes. Because child, you're gonna get them. The only thing, and I've said this before, is I'm gonna give you that trigger warning because I don't know how evident it is in the physical book. I read the Kindle and I listened to the audio book, which was really fun. But yeah, I'm gonna give you that trigger warning for domestic violence, physical violence, emotional abuse, manipulation, whatever you want and need. I'm giving it to you now because it is existent and prevalent in this book. But aside from that, it's a good old crazy chaotic time. Okay. So now that we talked about that, let's go ahead and get a bit more into the book where we're kind of exploring like the themes, and I'll talk a little about the plot. Remember, I don't want to get too much into the thick of it because I guess I'm really detailed in how I'm just explaining my general impressions and the characters. And I do intend to talk about the chapters 1 and 2 in a actual like summarized form, that I don't really want to give you all of it away. I want to leave a lot for your own imagination, so don't expect me to give you all the goods. I'm not gonna spoil it, right? We follow Raven. She's 17 years old. She's from Flint, Michigan. She is the daughter of Benjamin Atkins, who is a big time kingpin. He's pushing that product, and yeah, Raven is going through a lot of things that I'll kind of get to when I talk about the themes. She's figuring out herself. She's figuring out independence. She's experiencing what she believes is love, what she believes is, hey, I'm becoming a grown woman. People do this. People experience this. I'm trying to survive, so she has to survive and face these battles, rely on who she has closest to her, which I will say she don't really have much. You would think she does, because in the beginning of the book you imagine her as being so heavily protected, in the sense because her father is a big kingpin. She goes anywhere and people know who her father is and they have no choice but to protect her. So it's interesting how events turn, and I'm just like, who can she run to to fill this empty space? But I remember ending the book and I'm like, oh my lord, she is only 22 and she went through some things. Okay, I just want to reach out and hug this girl. Like, I just want to hug her. But yeah, anyway, let's go into some of the characters and then I will transition into some of the themes. So as I mentioned, characters, Raven, kind of gave you the gist of her. Another thing I didn't mention, but specifically more to her character, that lasted, I want to say, throughout the book. She's very impressionable, right? I think there were times where she tried to break through that and make her own, I guess, decisions based on what was right, but still that impressionable factor influenced a lot of her ability to follow through, to be in control of her life. And I think a lot of crap got shaken up, that it felt like it was no turning back. But she's this beautiful girl. She wants freedom so much, and freedom in aspects to be loved, and freedom to make decisions, to express and give love. And I wonder, and I'll get into this when I talk about the themes, I don't even really think there was a core theme of love in this book, from my judgment. But yeah, I don't think that she really knew who she was, because the transition from her becoming a grown woman, it still was kind of like forced. But she's super close to her family. She's very protected. She's sheltered. She doesn't really experience harm unless she deliberately puts herself in harm's way, which she does a great job at some things. Yeah. And there was one line that I remember, and I was like, I gotta remember this. My second time reading it, I received it in a much different way, because I talk about this protection thing, and that's one of the themes that I pulled from it, like this factor of what is protection and how do different people say that I'm protecting you. And in the beginning of the book, in chapters between chapter 1 or 2, or maybe really early on, she said that she only really feels most protected when she's with her father or around her father. And I find that really interesting. So I will leave that for you. We also meet Nikki, and she is the best friend of Raven. They've been best friends since very young, even before her family had a sense of status. So they go way back. Yeah. There is a mysterious person that is identified within like the first 2 pages of the book. We later find out that that is Ethic. At the time of his debut, he's like early 20s, maybe 22. I do know by the end of the book, I want to say that he was identified to be like 27 or 28. So he's 5 years older than Raven, who at the onset of the book was only 17. So 17, and maybe he's like, Ethic is maybe 22, 23, and then later on he's like 27, right? So Ethic, mysterious. Y'all always calling a brother mysterious. Ain't nothing mysterious about him. Anyway, mysterious. You could tell I got my own personal bone to pick. What else would I describe him as? Loyal. He's stern. And because of that mysterious factor, he can be, or I actually do think that if I see Ethic on the street, he probably will look really unapproachable. But he's street smart. He will easily outsmart you. He's very focused, hard to read. I believe that they didn't describe him as that, but I can just tell that this man got some layers to him. And I also think that he is hard to love. I feel like, I don't even want to get there, but I do think that Ethic is very hard to love. But I think that he thinks that he is easy to love, or maybe other people think that he's so easy to love because of this. I'm getting too into it. Anyway, after Ethic, we have Benjamin Atkins, who is the father of Raven. He kingpin, hood royalty. What else you want me to say? He's well respected. But yeah, if he's the kingpin and everybody knows him, that must mean his name rings bells, right? And then we have Justine, who is Benjamin's wife and also Raven's mother. There's nothing really to discuss there aside from the fact that, like, they mentioned early on in the book, like maybe chapters 1 or 2, that Justine kind of sees herself mirrored in Raven. Sorry, I couldn't think of her name. So, you know, the same thing. 17, met up with Benjamin, got into some things. Benjamin saved the day. You know, she felt kind of compelled to him because of that. He saved my life, and now they're married. So there's an interesting dynamic there that was kind of explored or touched upon. So you can kind of like fill in the gaps with Justine and Benjamin as well. Morgan is the younger sister of Raven. She is very young, maybe 6 or 7 years old. Nothing really developed with her in Moth to a Flame. I mean, she's experienced some very chaotic events for her to be so young. So I also want to just like reach out and hug her. But last but not least, our neighborhood antagonist, Mizan. There's a couple of things for him with his name on it, starting with the boot. So Mizan, how would I describe Mizan besides the fact that he is a bozo with a capital B? He's the ops. He's a clown. I felt like he was a clown the first 30 seconds of him being on my text. Like I smelled that from a mile away. PU. It reeked, right? But he's shisty. He's weak, corny. Think Alvin Johnson from Love Don't Cost a Thing. Like, that plot was him wanting to feel popular, so he paid old girl to help him feel popular and stuff. Yeah. Think that with this wannabe. That's all he is. He's a wannabe. Yeah. He's grimy. He just looked for a meal ticket and unfortunately got it. I have nothing positive to say to him and will never have anything positive. So on to the next one. And those are all the real big characters that played a significant role in the book. And lastly, the themes that I wanted to kind of talk. So in anything that I do, themes are always really important because it's like, what are you getting from this? Whether it's themes in your personal life, themes in reading, things in your work. There are a few themes that you can kind of pick up that I think were kind of explored in different avenues regarding some of the characters, some which pertain around growth. I think that some people will pull out a sense of an independence theme. I pulled out codependence among a few of the characters. Family is a theme, and what you relay as what a family's supposed to do and mean, because I think that there's also an undertone of brokenness that wasn't really there. But you know, when you start to test avenues of loyalty and control, which is another theme, that leads you to money, power, and disrespect. That's the biggest theme in here: money, power, and disrespect. That's what the book should have been called. Because first you get that money, then you get that power, and then you gotta disrespect a whole lot of folks. Yeah, all of these things were within a few of the characters, not just like for one. Notice I didn't really say there's a theme of love, because I don't think that there was a theme of love, which goes back into my example around the codependency aspect. I think that there was a theme of, yes, of course, love is blind, but more so the intentions behind that were very transactional. So you can decipher if that's what every relationship usually is usually like give and take, but like a lot of this was reoccurring, like take so you can't take no more. And I mean that amongst everybody. I am probably leaving out some, so definitely dish down with me in the comments. What do you think were some of the themes if you have read it? What is a theme that you relate to within my deciding of some of the themes that played a really big role? Did I miss any characteristic details regarding any of the characters? Dish down with me in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have read the book. Let me know if you're thinking about reading the book because you want to meet Mr. Ethic, who I have this big old problem with. Whatever you feel, whatever's on your spirit, let me know. You changed the game. I like it thus now.